Friends and subscribers, this is China News for October 2014. Happy Halloween wherever you're at. And what's going on in China? Well, I'll try to hit on many topics, but as you know, 20 minutes each month is not enough time to cover everything that's going on over here. I'll try to do my best. First off, inflation slows to a 4-year low. Now, the target for inflation this year by the Chi-Coms was 3.5% to 4%. It's gone slightly under that, so basically what the administration here is doing is saying that the inflation rate being off has to do with the housing market, the slow in the housing market. Now, we all know that the Chinese government supplements things such as rice and pork and some other key staple areas. So in effect, they can control their inflation and they can make it any number that they want. And it's remarkably similar to what's going on in the West. Now here's the unemployment rate right now in China at 4%, which again is a controlled number. It's off. Inflation and unemployment can't be below 3.5 and 4% respectively. Now how do I know this? Well, just based on the number of people that I've talked to that have been either out of a job, looking for a job, and all you really have to do is look at the total number of jobs in China and then find out the working age and the able bodies that can work and then do the math. And you'll find that it's impossible that the unemployment rate could be at 4% because there simply are not enough jobs to cover the over 1 billion people that are of working age and able body. Now, there are a lot of old people in China that are at retirement age, but still, it's impossible to have an unemployment rate at 4% in a nation this large. Likewise, the inflation rate, how convenient, in the West as well. Now, I think what's happening is that everyone is destroying their currencies in unison, okay? The short-term deflation is going to raise calls for having more QE and stimulating economies. And they're all going to do this at once. They meet at Davos, they meet at other places around the world to discuss what they're going to do to their local economies, and they all act in unison. You can look at a track record and that'll show you exactly what's going on. When have they issued QE? When have the nations of the world, the big economies, done stimulus? Why have they done it in similar time periods? Look at the rhetoric, inflation rate, unemployment rate. All of this stuff that you're seeing is the same garbage as it is in the West. So, what's going on here? The world at odds with each other, or is there one central body that is governing the entire world economy? You decide. I'll give you a quick look here at the people that have the masks. In Beijing, in Shanghai, in the major cities, they're wearing some elaborate masks to protect them from the massive air pollution. Now, a lot of these masks are in a higher category than what most Chinese wear, such as these jobs right here, which are more expensive but filter out microns to the more finite levels, and that can help not only with pollution but with spread of virus and disease. And that the Umbrella Revolution, Occupy Central in Hong Kong, still going strong, despite rhetoric coming out of the opposite. Multiple times I've been in Hong Kong. I've seen eyewitness reports of what's happening there. Some shop owners are saying up to 80% reduction in their sales, and that simply is the case around the areas that are being occupied. There are tent cities now in Hong Kong for devoted students that want to have some results coming out of the upcoming elections, and they want to ensure the future of Hong Kong for generations to come. Now, oftentimes I've seen flags saying, "Beware Taiwan," because this sets precedent for what could happen in Taiwan eventually. The Chi-Coms have always said that they eventually will take over Taiwan and bring it back into the fold. So those in Taiwan, the government there, should be wary of that fact. The cartoon of the month here shows that the Chinese are very well aware of the upcoming elections in the United States, As you can see, Republican and Democrat boxers facing off against each other. Meanwhile, Ebola is holding the round card, and that just kind of signals that maybe it's more important to focus attentions on other things. The Chinese see the two-party system in America as being something a little comical, as they don't have to worry about squabbles between two parties or more. With their central government, they can focus on some real problems as they see it without having these midterm and major elections. A shout out to the China Money Report for posting several interesting articles, including this. Chinese media saying we are the gold consumption superpower. That is certainly true, as Chinese citizens may hold as much as 6,000 tons of gold. And how do we know this? Well, basically, we have official reports, and then we have reports that are done on proxy. So every time there's a gold bullion sale around the world, they will list the buyers, but they won't often list the entire list of buyers. In other words, they'll have some unnamed buyers that will purchase 100 tons here, 100 tons there, and so on and so on. So we can assume that the Chinese or the Indians or the Russians are in there buying by proxy, in addition to what they're already listing as being their official holdings. Now, China officially imported over 1,500 tons in 2013. Some estimate as high as 2,200 tons through Hong Kong and other import outlets. So 400 tons they produce annually, which is just domestically, but they produce gold all over the world. So if they're in mining operations in Africa, the Philippines, Australia, and so on, it's safe to say that more than 2,000 tons per year can be acquired by the Chinese government. Now, if that's the case, then that means that the Chinese have well over the 8,000 plus tons that the U.S. reports that they have, and perhaps as much as 20,000 tons, when you consider that the Chinese public has been able to purchase gold for years now. And I've been in China for several years, and as I've been reporting to you, month on month, year on year, the over-the-counter sales are tremendous, not just in jewelry, but in investment-grade bullion. So it's safe to say that the game is pretty much over if you're looking at the number one holder of gold bullion. It's China by a long shot. Okay, in addition to China Money Report, another article on gold did a great job this month. SmithKline in Shanghai has really posted some great stuff here, so I recommend taking a look at that site. Gold at 7,000. Article goes viral in the Chinese media because so many Chinese are holding gold, either by the gram, by the ounce, by the kilo even. So if the video going viral says by a Westerner, by the way, that gold will go to 7,000, then you know that people in China are keen on what's going on in the gold market. There's a look at a 2009 Panda coin, and as I've been saying for years now, whenever I go to coin shops and whenever I take a look at auctions, I see more and more Chinese housewives buying investment grade gold bullion. This should key you in into what's going on here. The men buy the coins and the collectibles. The women buy the investment grade gold bars by the gram or by the ounce or even by the kilo. I've seen little old ladies coming into coin shops and buying these huge 5 and kilo Panda coins and gram bars, you name it. Every time I go into a shop, I see someone that I would not expect that would be buying gold, and they're buying gold. Someone that maybe isn't educated completely on gold, but they're buying investment grade gold and they're storing it away for a rainy day. And that's exactly what the rest of the world should be doing if they had the opportunity to buy gold. Because as you know, in many parts of the world, over-the-counter bullion purchases are next to impossible. There are many European countries where they simply do not have it to sell over the counter. And if you buy it from a bank, it'll take a while to take delivery. And then you have a paper trail and so on. VAT tax. It's a pain in the rear. to purchase investment-grade assets like gold and silver in some nations. It's a pity, but it's something that a lot of people that are savvy on what's going on over the past several years has to take notice of. The Chinese are doing it. It's been working for them. It'll continue to work for them in the long run. Only time will tell how high gold could go, but a good buying opportunity is waiting for you. So don't wait. Go ahead and exchange your fiat for gold, silver, and other hard assets. It's the best advice that I can give anyone. As you all know, it's been many years now that China has continued to improve its relationship with African nations. And it goes both ways. It's not just Chinese direct investment into African nations' infrastructure to promote trade, to increase mining and other types of commodity exports from Africa, but it's also the relationship with Africa in China. As you can see by these statistics here, these are just the stats from Guangzhou in south of China in relation to African students and African business people. Nigeria is the #1 country that has direct relations with Guangzhou in terms of student and business relationships. Islam's the most religious sect of Africans that are in Guangzhou. 63,600, the number of African tourists who visited Guangzhou in just 1 year. They expect that to rise year on year. 168, the number of people Guangzhou police arrested in connection with drug-related offenses just in Guangzhou. 74.6, the ratio of Africans in Guangzhou who entered China on a business visa. And that's interesting to note. 210 US dollars billion equivalent, the total volume of Sino-African trade just in 2013. That's been growing year on year. 200,000, the number of African residing in Guangzhou alone. And that adds to a growing population throughout China of Africans that are living here either temporarily or permanently. 1990s was the first wave of Africans entering China, and since then, relations have increased. Natural resources for technology and infrastructure improvement, education transfers, and other issues are one of the most important aspects of what the CHICOMs are trying to do worldwide. Myself, I know several people, friends and acquaintances that are either working in Africa or have worked in Africa in the mining industry and in other sectors. So this is a major focus of China, and I think that it's going to be a major hotbed going forward 10, 20 years down the road. We won't be talking so much about the Middle East as we'll start to talk more and more about what's going on in Africa. Let's take a look at car sales throughout China. In the sedan category, VW La Vida is the #1 seller, followed by Ford Focus, more VWs. Volkswagen out of Germany, very strong as the #1 seller of autos in the world. SUV category, surprisingly, Great Wall Hoover. Now this is a Chinese company that sells a low-cost SUV, and they're surprisingly #1 there in the SUV category. The multifunctional vehicles, or basically van sales, these are all here, and you can see there the brands up here. Chinese brands still pretty strong here, 21.5. Germany, of course, in the lead. And the top 10 companies by sedan sales. Shanghai General Motors up there. And there's the September sales. And so you can see the car sales are still robust despite a slowing economy. And we should expect to see that to continue in China as more and more people move away from bikes and e-bikes and public transportation to cars. Can only mean one thing: more pollution, more traffic, and more social issues. The CHICOM's future vision, Xi Jinping issues a multi-tiered vision of what they want to do in the future here, and it has to do both with domestic and foreign issues. The domestic goals: values, morality, prosperity, fairness, happiness. These values are very important for the Chinese public, according to the CHICOMs. domestic means, close to the people, realism, stability, reform, rule of law, combating corruption as being a major concern with the Chinese leadership. China Daily front page in the news, Ebola in the United States. But here in China, there hasn't been as much information or fear over Ebola as you're seeing in the West. And I think it has a lot to do with the press not playing it up, not trying to create a ruckus of the Chinese public regarding Ebola. Whereas in the West, you see the press hyping it up, everyone getting scared and everybody getting worked up when maybe they shouldn't be. Now, I've only seen one pamphlet walking around China here, and here's one on Ebola, and explains in Chinese what it is and regards where you can go if you have any symptoms. Now, I have a friend that has worked in Liberia for more than 1 year that has recently come back to China. There haven't been really any issues as far as being quarantined or anything like that. As far as I can tell, they just go through the normal routine of anyone coming back from Africa. They do the vaccinations, they do things like that. But there hasn't been nearly as much hype as you would think here regarding Ebola. There was more hype over bird flu and SARS several years back than there has been about Ebola. Do the Chinese know something that the West doesn't?